I am Wendy Wallbridge, and I am your host for this evening, and I love to convene conversations that matter and to help women and men unlock their power and natural brilliance, not just for themselves, but in service to life itself. And tonight we have a really exciting agenda for you. But before I go there, I just want to say, look at this room. I mean, look at this, the women in this room. I was looking at the list before I came in, and the competency and the accomplishment and the strength, but more than that, the soulfulness of the women in this room is really amazing. Take a look around at who is in this room, the beauty in their eyes. It's really something. So thank you all for being here. Really great. Yeah. And I want to take a minute to just thank our sponsors for having us here. Mary Anderson from Dolby, if you would please stand up, and Caroline Donahue. Mary's the VP of Global Marketing and the head of Sales and Marketing, Caroline Donahue from Intuit. She's from Dolby. And then Netgear. Robin, stand up. Robin is CMO of Netgear, and so generous of all of you to jump in on this creation called Women's Evolutionary Leadership. So thank you for being here. We are living at a time of such amazing opportunity, an unbelievable amount of choices that we have to make every single day. Choices not just about what we're going to wear, our hair, but which are different than if you think about what your grandmother had to think about, but choices about other people's lives, choices about how our marriages are going to be, our relationships, the people that we manage, choices about our careers, and also the glut of products to choose from, the millions of brands to choose from. I mean, just choosing a toothpaste can be a real, which one's going to give me the dazzling smile? It can be a real challenge. So it's really natural that we feel confused. And if you think about your grandmother, who she was, most likely your grandmother, her life was a lot like her mother's. And also it looked like the people that she knew. But if you think about your life, it most likely doesn't necessarily look just like your friends, and it certainly doesn't look like your grandmother's, right? So we are really making it up as we go along. And as we do that, it's going to be natural that we run into self-doubt, and we run into failure, and we run into lots of questions. So to have compassion for yourselves is really important, because it wasn't just the women in the 60s that forged the way, to begin our liberation. We are on the front lines. We are actually, I heard this from a talk by Elizabeth Gilbert, whom I love, Eat, Pray, Love. She said that we are the first generation, and by generation she means anyone that was born in a 90-year period from now, that has the kind of authority, the kind of freedom, the kind of literacy, the kind of economic well-being, access to it anyway, the kind of access to our own power and education. If you think about it, we are the first generation to have that. Can you hear me better now?
Oh, yeah.
So what she said was, okay. What she said was, as you struggle, remember that we are at the very beginning of a completely unprecedented historic social science experiment as women. That it wasn't just, that we are the first generation to do this. So it's amazing, and you can do it, and it's difficult, but it's also because we don't have a lot of role models, strong, autonomous female role models, that an abundance of those to look to. So we have to look inside. We have to touch into our own inner wisdom. And that's why we're really curious about what everyone else is doing. So the glut of reality shows, but also the age of memoir. And if you think about the Oprah culture, I mean, it's all about, how is she doing it? And has she figured it out? So my intention in creating Women's Evolutionary Leadership as an organization is to find a way to give women access to deeper relationship with each other, to give us a place as busy Silicon Valley women to come together and forge the kind of relationships where we have each other's back, where we're on the hunt for each other's gifts, where we're really there, and that we can come to drink from the well and have these kinds of relationships refuel us and replenish us. So that happens only in relationship, and magic happens in relationship and being connected. So that's what this is all about, and what better person could I possibly imagine to have with us tonight to speak to that is the one and only Tiffany Shlain. And I want to just say a couple things about Tiffany. You know, I've known her for a while, and her work is amazing, and I just rewatched Connected while I was flying back from back east, and I kept rewinding it and watching it and rewinding and watching it very carefully, because she has an uncanny ability to draw links between things that seem very disparate, that you wouldn't connect normally, from sociology to biology, from the past to the future, from psychology to culture. She has this ability to go way up 30,000 feet and help us have a better understanding of how this world fits together and what is our place in it, what is our place of belonging in it, and how can we access more of our humanity through our connectedness. So I'm just so pleased to have her. She's an example of somebody who's integrated head and heart. She's a devoted mother. She's a brilliant creator, a director of films, author of books, and she's going to share with us some of her latest work tonight that she'll tell you about. So with that, I just want to give her a warm...
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That was awesome. I'm so happy to be here, to be in a room full of amazing women. Like, there is no better way that I'd rather spend my night. And I'm really excited. I mean, I didn't know what your intro was going to be, but when you were talking about what Elizabeth Gilbert was saying, such a good setup for this like sneak peek I'm going to show you. I was up till midnight last night. I am finishing my very first film series called The Future Starts Here. It's for AOL, and all 8 episodes are going to be released on October 10th, not very far away. I'm working my ass off with my team. I brought as a surprise like somebody with a massage chair last night. And I've never worked on a film series, which is like 8 films at once. So I'm like going from station to station to station. I mean, it was craziness, but I've never had more fun. And there's one of the episodes is like, I can't wait to show you. So if you want to tweet, this is my handle and Wendy's handle.
Perfect.
And the hashtag.
Yeah.
And
feel free to tweet this out.
Tweet it out. Yeah. So we're going to talk about harnessing your power creatively and with technology. And these are subjects I'm super interested in. And I think that you mentioned Connected, and I will show a trailer. How many of you have seen Connected? Okay, well, I'll show a trailer. It's I think they're available tonight, and it was in theaters and Sundance, and it really was my personal. Originally, I wanted to make a feature film about what the history of connectedness from the Big Bang to today and where we're going. And while I was making it, my father was co-writing it with me, and actually Elizabeth Gilbert was a big fan of my dad's, another little link of his book. He wrote a book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess, The Conflict Between Word and Image, which is all about what brought patriarchy to society. Women used to be the goddesses and the most revered, and he tracked it all throughout civilization and found that whenever the alphabet was introduced into society, which is very left brain and linear and male, it kind of rewired society, and all the gods became men. And all the women went down, and the men went up, and patriarchy. And it's a brilliant book. He's a total feminist. And my mom, an amazing feminist. I had 2 feminist parents. I'm the product of that. But tonight, in particular, I'm going to talk about time, and I'm going to talk about creativity. Because time is a lot of what technology is changing for us. Something I'm really interested in exploring is the creative process. And basically, you could apply this to anything. I mean, I'm normally applying this to a film or a book. You could apply this to absolutely anything that you really want to do that is outside of your comfort zone and that you're passionate about. So as I'm talking, graft that project onto what I'm saying. So when I was in my 20s, I was going to UC Berkeley, and I was doing well making movies, and I was a little cocky, and I graduated, and I thought, I'm going to make my first feature film, and Spike Lee had just done it. And I was a waitress, I was a professor's assistant, I had all these credit cards, and I got all these people to work for free on my film, and it was called Zoli's Brain, and it was going to be my first feature film, and I totally failed. I ran out of money, I had a creative block, which scared the hell out of me. Like, I'd never been without an idea, and it was like a 6-month stretch where I was like, could not see how to make this movie work with the footage I had. I lost confidence, and got depressed, really depressed. And you know, everyone has that. I mean, how many of you got depressed in your early 20s? Thank you. I mean, I don't know why the 20s are glamorous. I'm like, that was the worst decade. I'm like, but I went through my first really big depression over that, and then I slowly, that was such a big undertaking, and I started to do all these kind of smaller projects, and then I smaller films. And actually made a film on reproductive choice there you are, called Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of Happiness. I don't know if any of you. And I started the Webby Awards, which became this huge thing. But I really was taking baby steps. And the Webby started small, and then it got crazy big. But it was a really interesting process to be young and not understand, to get through the scary stage. And now that I'm older, 43, I love the 40s. They're just awesome. I heard they just get better, which is good. But I'm more comfortable with understanding the stages of the process. So it was really fun for me to actually break them down. And now I kind of plan for these stages. So for Connected, I really understood it. I mean, I went through them. We put them into the schedule. And so I really feel like, in a lot of ways, I found my voice with Connected. So Connected, I made a whole bunch of films that I had a male narrator. Because why shouldn't women with good ideas have a man speak them, right? Like 90% of all documentaries, trailers, news are narrated by men. And I was making this film, Connected, and I had Peter Coyote. He's awesome. I mean, he's the voice. He's my go-to voice of God. But in the middle of production, I was like, why am I not saying these words? And it was a big breakthrough moment. It's like owning your voice. So half of the movie with Connected is narrated by Peter Coyote, and he has all the kind of left brain, kind of historical, and all of the kind of more intuitive, associative is my voice, the right, the feminine. And they kind of weave back and forth. In the end, we kind of trade words. But it was a really interesting process. Now, every film since Connected is all narrated by me. I mean, you saw that. Like, why, I really felt like I moved my life into the first person. And that's it's a really big philosophical, because I used to do the Webbies, which were great. I was honoring all these people, which was such a beautiful thing to be able to do. But in a lot of ways, I was putting a lot of other people in front of me and honoring them, which was a great decade to spend my life doing that. But as I've kind of come away from that, I found my own voice and really spoken what I think about the world as I'm processing it, as we all are. So in the creative process for me, it always starts with the hunch. And the hunch is a very exciting part because you have like an inkling, and you're just about to jump off a cliff. And I always do something that I know people tell me now that it's unusual that I do, but I always start an advisory board. I literally have an idea for something, and I'm like, I write to my favorite people around that subject. It's not always the same people. And I say, you're being invited to an advisory board. Everybody wants to be on an advisory board. But they mostly want to be on it to meet the other people on the advisory board. So don't make it a call. Make it cocktails. Wine, cheese. Always when I start any project, I have a cocktail party with my favorite people, and I tell them what I want to do. It's almost like if you say it, you're going to do it. And I get their advice, and they're like my team. And that always starts at the hunch phase. And I always feel like sometimes when I have a hunch, it's not totally clear what I'm doing, but I'm jumping. And I talk about it. It's so funny in the Valley. Do you guys remember the time of the Webby Awards when I started in the 90s? No one was talking about what they were doing. Like, I'm under NDA. I can't talk about it. That's so ridiculous. Like, in the talking about it, you figure out what you're doing. So at a cocktail party, I'm always testing out, like, what are you working on? And I'm like, okay, who am I talking to? Okay, I'm going to try to describe it from this perspective. And in the talking about it, I get real clarity on what the hell I'm doing. So always try it out. Don't be afraid. Like, try it long, try it short, try it. You're going to see what resonates with people, and that's going to help you get clearer. And then the next phase of my creative process is one of my favorites. I call it the sponge phase. And like right now I'm in a major work phase where I've been working. I put my kids to bed and I drive into the city and edit till midnight. I am not watching any movies or I'm not receiving any media. I am in a lockdown creative mode. But during the sponge stage, I am seeing every art show, movies, books, magazine. I'm on Pinterest. I'm at the sponge stage, and that is super fun. Just like put yourself out there around anything that the subject of what you're interested in is. And then the next phase, I love the word filmmaker has the word maker in it because you're building. You're building the script, you're building the notes, you're building your plan, you're doing your fundraising. So the building phase is always a really fun phase. And then confusion, darkness. Now that was where I got to on Zoli's Brain, that film, when I was in my 20s. But I stopped there because I did not know that it always is better after this phase. I got stuck in this phase. And now I got into that phase on Connected, which was this huge feature, lots of money and I didn't freak out. I was just like, I'm in that stage. I'm going to wallow in that stage because I know I'm going to get out of that stage, which is a great thing that wisdom breeds. That's what I love about getting older. I just feel like knowing that that is an important stage. Every film, even if I make a 3-minute film, I have that stage. And then what you need to do when you get to that stage is step away from the project. I literally build into my even with the AOL series, there's a period where I'm not going to look at it. I am going to go away. I'm not going to look at the cuts because you totally lose perspective, and you need to know that that's going to happen. That's also what happened with Zoli's Brand. I totally lost perspective, so I build it into the process. It's like a period where you're not going to talk or look at it at all. And then, now anyone that joins my film studio is the first thing I teach them. I call it the love sandwich. So I believe every email should have a love sandwich. So basically, the world works much better when you start with love. Then you ask for the thing you might need, and then you end with love. Sometimes I get emails from people, I get emails all the time, like, I want to pick your brain. I'm like, I don't know you, you're not touching my brain, and you didn't start with any love. Like, tell me what you like about my work, basically, the simplest little email, start with love to your family. I have a family member who I love and is super charming in person and on email, like Kurt, where's the love? So when I'm working on a project, I show my films a lot. This one's almost done, but I do a lot of rough cut screenings, which are very scary because you're showing something that's not done. But I always set expectations, and I always, sometimes you ask people for feedback, and what people think when you ask for feedback is everything that's wrong with it. Yeah. So now I learned, oh my God, they're not just being insensitive and cruel to my little baby I've just been laboring over. They just don't know. So now I teach them about the love sandwich. So I write my Q&As and the rough cut screenings. I said, what did you love? What worked for you? Tell me, I've been working my ass off for a year on this. What worked for you? And then I say, and what didn't work for you? And then at the end I said, and what worked for you again? Because I am going to receive it better. And you have to teach people how to give feedback. And also, you have to set their expectation. I've been sending these rough cuts of the motherhood episode. I sent it to all my feminist friends, and I got great notes. 2 weeks ago, it was not as good as it was now, and I wasn't clear on my, the time thing. I had to zero in on that. But I wrote it at the top. I'm 2 weeks from locking picture. I cannot have intense notes here. I want light notes, because you also have to tell people where you are. And of course, 6 of my friends followed that, and then the friend that didn't went right in for the jugular. But you have to teach people how to give you feedback that you're going to receive well. And I call this stage the premature breakthrough elation. Because I have so many breakthroughs on my projects. We have poster boards on our walls of breakthrough moments. We think they're breakthroughs. And they are important, but they're not really breakthroughs, but they help you get to the bigger breakthroughs. And those are all really important parts of the process too. So I sometimes will think we have just come upon the biggest breakthrough, and then the next morning, it's a shitty idea. And I'm and I thought I saw them, God, and sleep on it. Sleep on emails, big important emails, and creative ideas that you think are going to solve everything. In the morning, everything, I have 5 more minutes. Oh my God, okay. Keep notes. I'm a big note taker. I write in a journal. I'm always going back to my notes.
For those of you who are coaches in the room or people in development, some of this you already know, but it's put together in such a way that everybody can access it and you're inspired to want to be your best from watching it, right?
That's what we hope. We're trying, if any of you have ideas, we our goal is to get this in every school in the world, actually. Because, it's for young people, it's for parents, educators, it's for everybody. I mean, so we're trying to think of a really powerful launch. So we're talking to the National PTA, we're talking to TED, we're talking to Sunday. But I want to do something different with this one. It's 8 minutes. So I was thinking maybe every back to school night. My other films in this series have been translated into many, many languages. So we want it to be global. So if any of you have any connections to education networks or have thoughts, definitely let me know. Oh, if you're interested, I make these collaborative cloud films, which this is one of them. And I ask a lot for participation, as you saw, videos and ideas. And on my Facebook page is called Connected the Film. I'm on Twitter. And I have, this is a new film series. And I also do a quarterly newsletter called Breakfast at Tiffany's, which I've been doing for 15 years. But it always invites people if they want to make a movie with us, because we love making these collaborative films. So you can find me there.
That's great. There's so many questions that I have, and a lot of my questions were about Connected, but I'm just going to put those aside.
Okay.
So, the idea of the prefrontal cortex, that we know is the executive function, and I now have a 12-year-old nephew living with me as of this week, so that is completely new, and he doesn't have a prefrontal cortex.
No, he doesn't. No, I want to make a film called The Teenage Brain, because actually what happens to the brain is it completely restructures during your teenage years, and actually the prefrontal cortex is not connected to the parts that it should be.
The amygdala.
Yeah, well, it's reason why this neuroscientist was it's like a plug that just can't reach. And so every time when they will be drunk driving, why'd you do that? I wasn't thinking. It's literally their emotion and their wants and desires was not connected to their prefrontal cortex. So actually getting them to try to be mindful about their decisions. Every time somebody stops and asks, why am I doing that? Yeah. You're actually making a stronger synaptic connection between your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex, which is your emotional brain is your amygdala and your prefrontal cortex is your thinking brain.
Yeah, it's the profundity of a pause.
Yes.
Just taking that moment to ask yourself, like you said, who do I want to be, and is this, what I'm about to say, is this connected to how I want people to see me? And as we get older, we can slow it down better, although I still have my slips.
No, I mean, we all still have moments. It's not like every moment, is this who I want to be? But I think on the bigger decisions, or when I'm moving too quickly, which is why I take off from technology. On technology, I find I'm doing a lot of too quickly, and I'm oh my God, did I just do, it's just too easy to do things. And so the slipperiness of that, you don't take that moment. And when I unplug on the weekends, I get perspective back.
I love what you had Peter Coyote say in the movie, too, that multitasking doesn't really make you smarter, that it literally lowers your IQ 10 points, which is the equivalent of being stoned. So I go around stoned a lot. About you.
Yeah, I'm super interested in the neuroscience of, because we are rewiring our brain, there's absolutely no doubt.
Yeah, and what we choose to focus on expands and magnifies. So it really is a powerful force. In fact, John Gray is writing a book right now called Focus.
Oh, he is?
Which, yeah, we should talk about. It's more, I think he's going to
There was a book that just came out called Distracted last year.
Yeah.
Or 2 years ago, yeah.
So
it's interesting.
I have a lot of questions about things about connectedness and about the brain, but I really want to know, and I think probably the women in the audience want to know. Well, I loved that your mom said the thing about emotional connection drives everything.
Yeah.
Because that is, to me, so the truth, in terms of what really matters is when we are connected, our head and our hearts are connected. Then we can make decisions that really matter. And what really matters, when you think about your life, if you think about the last year that you had, the moments that stood out for you most likely had something to do with relationship or emotional connection. Would you nod to that, do you think? Yeah? So, but because we're in such a fast-paced world and we're so driven to result, we're a little disconnected from our hearts. So my question to you is, you seem to, especially your father writing this book on Da Vinci, which, he said, you're going to love Connected. It's all in Connected, what I'm about
Connected.
to say.
I have a trailer I was going to show, which...
If there's time, we should. But everybody might get a copy.
Oh, you'll
also,
get a copy.
So, but he her father, whom I met and loved, I loved The Alphabet and the Goddess. It was amazing. Brilliant guy who operated on brains and studied them and understood them. But he was a prophet in a way. I mean, he saw the future in some ways. And he said that Leonardo da Vinci, he said that sometimes in time there's a breakthrough person that gets born who it gives us a sort of a clue into the possibility of what a species is going to develop into, something like that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That it's called a sport, like S-P-O-R-T, but it's a mutation. But it's really a future glimpse of where it's headed. So Leonardo da Vinci had such a developed creativity and scientific mind, which is right and left brain. And of course, there's a lot of crossover, but metaphorically, right and left brain, that he was really the potential of the human species to have that kind of crossover.
Right. And so this opportunity that we have as women right now, because so many doors are opening and we're at the same time that we're so desperately needed in terms of decision making. You know, the thing you said about Homo sapiens means wise beings. So what my sense is that we're really smart and we're accelerated in our technological understanding of things and we're going really fast, just like individuals are. But at the same time, we're kind of lacking in wisdom in terms of some of the bigger decisions that we're, not just us that we're making, but that are being made for us. And what my intent is and what my sense is that ever since we started being globally connected, which you've said in the movie, like Princess Diana when she died and the world grieved together. It's like our hearts got broken together. And 9/11, our hearts got broken together. And those are the moments when we see that we're all connected, that we see that we're all one. Yeah. And so what I'm getting to is just that I think we as women are more connected to our hearts as a rule. It's not, I can't make a huge generalization because there's some guys that are more and some women that are not. But as a rule, we are more connected, and I think it's our job now to be in our feelings enough so that we are emotionally connected to ourselves, so that we can have we can make the kind of decisions that are wise. We can impact the world and the way that the structure of organizations are, so that we can really bring that forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And when all the kind of working motherhood debate, when you guys were all on the hotbed of it, and I live in San Francisco, but I imagine the Valley, there's a lot of discussions. And I looked at that discussion and I was like, corporate structure is still was built by men. It is not, like, that's what I hope that came across clearly in my piece. Like, that never seemed like that would work for me as an emotional, creative being. Like, I'm really creative early in the morning, and I'm no good to anyone in the afternoon. And I kind of look at my creativity like an athlete now, because I've been really studying it, because I have to be so efficient being a working mother that I'm like, and like doing this film series, 8 films at once, like how can I be most creative? Well, I'm super creative in the morning before anyone's gotten to me with their emails and all this stuff. So I get up really early in the morning, and then I'm with my kids, take them to school, and then I work in the afternoon. I'm hanging out with them because I'm not going to create anything then. Put them to bed, and then I get creative again late at night.
You don't need a nap?
No, I sleep. Sleep is super important to me. When I was in my 20s, I was always proud of how little I sleep, but I realized I'm a much better version of myself if I get 8 hours. I value sleep. I really do. Whenever people are like, you're a machine, I'm like, no, it's not the role model. I take the weekends off. I don't work. I unplug. I sleep. I'm just very efficient when I'm creative. Because, athletes, they study when they're fast. Their coaches are like monitoring their...
What's the high performance?
Yeah, and I'm monitoring my creativity. And so anyways, I look at the corporate structure and I'm like, that was built for the 20th century by men. Yeah. So even all the lean in argument, I mean, she still said she was working till 6. That makes no sense to me. Like, as a creative, emotional being that's in tune with the rhythm of you, I just feel like, let us be the ones to say, we need to change the system. And yeah, I mean, and also there's rhythms to working really hard and not working really hard, but
creativity is a function of living from our depths.
Yeah, but living tapped into your emotion too. And if you're in some rigid structure that's not built for you, because some people are more creative really late at night, or I guess it's just being a more modern, it's thinking about time and creativity and productivity in a different way, which I think women could really help shape because, yeah.
Right. So it's that using our prefrontal cortexes to be the ones that say what will work best for us in order for, and it'll be best. It's when we do what works for us best, it's usually good for everyone.
Yeah. Well, that's what I tried to, on the last line, I'm like, some things haven't changed. It's still 168 hours in the week. And everyone still wants to be happy. And there's some things that aren't going to change, but like the way that we do that, there's so much room, there's so much freedom now in us to evolve that.
Yeah, and the whole thing you wrote about, I mean, this whole piece you did on the science of character is so brilliant because it simplifies a lot of positive psychology from all the study, that, up to where people can actually see, oh, I need to be more assertive internally so that I take charge and I have more agency. With how I'm thinking.
And one of the things that I learned, because I was speaking to all these wonderful and brilliant social scientists and neuroscientists, and one of them said to me recently, he's like, if what you're doing does not match what makes you happy, you're never going to be happy. Like, so many people are good at their jobs. I have a friend who is in the middle of job offers, and she just turned one down that she can do in her sleep. It's not going to make her happy, and it's like, I mean, we're all the women here are accomplished women. Like, that he said, the people that are always in the psychologist's office going, I'm not happy, and yet I have this job, I have the house, I have the whatever, it's because there's no alignment there. Yeah. So, but, I was going to say one other thing that I learned, and I have a line in the film, which is like, bring your strengths into different places. And I'm just going to use this analogy, which might seem weird, but I'm very enthusiastic in my films creatively. I'm not so much when I need to work out. And this year I really was like, I need to get my body back. I was like, I'm going to bring that strength from film into the gym. And I just started having so much fun. Like, I started working out with a trainer. Like, I knew I could not get where I needed to go by myself. I knew that enough. And it was an important, 43, done with the baby years, wanted to get my body back. And I went to the gym. I've been laughing my head off with this trainer. And I know that's a weird analogy, but it was like, all of you have strengths. But I was really trying to consciously move something that was a strength into a different situation.
Yeah, transfer it.
Transfer it, yeah. And I think, because in this movement of building on your strengths and honoring and celebrating the people around you and be like, you're so creative, or I love your wisdom, or it just makes them stronger when you say that. So it's like everyone's going to their strengths. Yeah.
Authentically. I mean, being on the hunt for each other's gifts, really. I mean, that's what I do for a living. Is just a weird thing about me. I'll look at somebody and I'll see the thing that I can see their gift,
Yeah.
And just you call it out and it blossoms.
It makes it, when you said hunt for your gifts at the beginning,
right.
Be on the hunt for gifts. I love that because I'm a big, say it out loud. If I love someone, I love you. Just throw it out there. Or you look great. I love your shoes. Or you're so funny. Or just call it out. It makes everything better.
If you took one thing away from tonight, that would be a really good skill to develop, is you're intuitive. You know what other people are great
Say
at.
It. Tell them.
Point at it. Put some water on that flower.
Yeah, it makes them blossom. It makes you blossom. It's the love sandwich everywhere, right?
Love sandwich. I love it. So is there any other secret that you want to share with us about how to be so creative? Because you're such an amazing creative maven.
Sleep. No, sleep is I'm really getting sleep. I didn't treasure it enough. Yeah. And then I just know that if I don't sleep, I can be a bitch. I can really be short, and it only comes when I don't sleep. I'm not like that naturally, but when I lose sleep, I get edgy. And I'm just I don't want to be that way. And I'm not that way when I get a good night's sleep. And so now I'm trying to sleep well. Because that's why I try to not bring my technology into my bedroom. A lot of people, how many of you use this as an alarm clock? It's really bad for your brain. Because how many of you, right before you go to sleep, you're going to get that email that's going to stress you out? And what are you going to dream about? That shitty email. And I'm trying not to do it. I'm trying not to bring my laptop. My bedroom's on the second floor, and my office is deep in the front of the house. And I sometimes bring it in the kitchen, but there's no technology upstairs. And I try to really create a separation for me, like let my brain go. But sleep just makes me more creative and makes me happier, and I'm nicer.
And we like that.
Yeah.
So you already talked about the most powerful transition for you in the creative process. Did you?
I think narrating my own film.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, I called Connected, the film that you guys, I guess, are getting tonight.
You can choose between that and her book. So
Right, a book about the brain.
Comes with your ticket.
Or Connected, but I called it an autobiography, which is a made-up word, which sounds ridiculous, but it was, because the film has a lot of humor in it, but it's also, because we're living in an autobiographical age, what's really interesting is...
Say what you mean by that, because I think I know, but I want to make sure everyone does. Because we can make it up, because we have the choice, we have the ability to say.
Well, I mean, it used to be, like, there's so many autobiographical books, right? But there's not that many movies that are autobiographical. Documentaries are never in the first person. And so mine is one of the few. There's like 5. And I called it an autobiography. It's like, I'm not going to pretend I'm objective. I'm completely subjective. This is all I know. This is my experience. And I owned it, and a lot of people loved it. Some people were like, you can't make a documentary from a first person, Yeah. But I think everybody's doing their autobiography. Every Facebook post, every tweet is you trying to say who you are. I mean, I think people are going overboard right now. I have a friend going through a divorce, and I knew it was like the weekend she was telling her kids. She was dreading it. I was like so anxious what was going to happen, and then on her Facebook post was like her with her kids at the bakery smiling, and I was like, how are you doing? How did it go? She was horrible. I'm like, why did you post that? And I think everyone's trying to put this facade out about this life that doesn't exist. But I don't actually do very many personal posts on Facebook, but I think I want to do a film about it, like everyone's need to be acknowledged, to be alive, like we're all like these, anyways, so I think it's a little bit too much in the other direction, but finding your authentic voice and being honest. I found in my talks, like I've been giving talks for 20 years. When I was younger, I would give these talks where I thought a talk should be, everything I know, and the more I have just been honest, and obviously I have no notes, I'm just speaking from what I'm really thinking, the better my talks have become, because I'm just being honest with you. And there's random things coming up. Like, I've been very nervous about my Spanx, which is now showing. And I've been stressed because I'm sitting on a stage, and I'm with a whole bunch of women, so I'm like...
Nobody's.
Now, normally I would not have said that. But the truth is, you all thought that was funny. You were wearing Spanx too, and you understand that. So... but I think what my mother, she's a psychologist, and what she taught me is success distances you from people, and hardship and embarrassment brings you together.
Wow, the whole Brene Brown vulnerability stuff. Yeah,
I have not. Somebody's like, you have to watch those talks. I know. She's like, you guys got to get into the same room together. I know. I have to see her talk.
You're an example of it, so you don't have to really listen to that. So I'm going to just ask you one last question before we move into the part where all of you get to interact with each other, so that it's our intention that you walk out of here with new friends and new colleagues and new women to share wisdom with. So we have a short section where you're going to get to do that, and Susan Green's going to facilitate that, and then we're going to come back and have a time for Q&A with Tiffany and I again. But I just want one closing question from me is, to borrow from James Lipton's Actor Studio.
Oh.
Yeah. Finally, if heaven exists, what would you want God to say as you arrive at the pearly gates?
Oh, my God. Like what that woman said at the end of the movie?
Yeah, I want to be totally wrung out.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh, you have wrung it out. I watched that. I've seen that like 700 times, and she just, like, I get chills every time. Like, I just want to live life to suck the marrow out of. Like, if I die tomorrow, and I think about death all the time, there's a lot of death in my world, and I think it makes life sweet. And I think I do think about, I do think every day, if I died, I'd be doing exactly what I want to do with the people around me. My priorities are straight. I just, I'm always, that's my compass, is if I were to die tomorrow, because it can happen at any moment. And I have my 4-year-old's best friend, Bluma is my 4-year-old's daughter. Her best friend Willa's father is within days of death right now. And it's just devastating. And her mother wrote this beautiful email about how to talk about death. And she said, I know not everyone believes this, but I'm just going to tell you the way we're telling art, so we hope you can support what we're telling her. They said, when he goes, which will be any day, anytime you do something that he loves, he's living in you. Which I love. I was like, because you always hear that, they live on with you, which I believe, but whenever you do something that that person loved, like they're alive. So, yeah.
But that's a great testament and way to live, too, so thank you for that. All right, so Susan, did you want to facilitate this next 20-minute section?
Thank you, Tiffany.
We'd love to hear just a little bit about what you learned or what you were inspired by or what your strength is. Just maybe 3 or 4 people. I want to just go around and have you stand up and tell us. This group is still completely involved over here doing their thing. I mean, it's so engaging. Oh, they're trading business cards? Well, that's what we're here for. You should be trading business cards with everybody, yeah. Tell me something from over here. What was your inspiration? What did you realize? What was something that you could share? Yes, Doris, of course.
Oh, this was just really great. So one of the things that I thought is I am inspired because I just left a contract position at a company that shall remain nameless to those of you who already know who it is. But it was just like a soul-sucking experience. But it was the most awesome experience, too, because it really reinforced how I need to create the life that I want, and that I will never again have to suffer through another meeting in a high-tech company where I'm telling myself, don't smile, don't smile, don't smile. And so it's like I can be me, and I am me, and I can make the wonderful life that I want being me.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Amen.
great. Thank you. Yes, who else could share? Yes, thank you.
First thing I'm just present to is if I could put an umbrella, like what inspired me from today, what am I taking away, is the experience of both of you of just completely living a life of contribution. And, just thank you. Thank you for what it takes to do that. It's not, we're not set up culturally for that, and we're not, it looks like if you're going to live a life of contribution, you're not going to make money and all that other crap. So anyway, just thank you. The other thing is, you said we've got to change the system. And I want to say something about, we had a brief conversation in our group about, if you work here in the Valley and if you're in a big company, you're in a global conversation. And it's almost impossible to not take email on Sunday because it's Monday in Asia. And it's almost impossible to not be on the phone at, 1 in the morning because, Israel is, right? So all of that stuff. And that's still in the paradigm that was developed by men. I mean, it's that whole male masculine energy kind of thing that we're invincible. And the thing you said about sleep, I love. Now, I've gotten to an age where I kind of don't have a choice. Like it's like, okay, I got to stop now. But that's also masculine, that kind of like, I'm tough, I'm invincible, I don't need anything, I don't need to be taken care of. And
I don't need anything, right?
And we've got to bring nurturing. We've got to bring self-care. And if it isn't working for me, it's not working for them. So I'm in the process of, I don't know if it's a chapter or if it's a book, that the nature of service serves everyone. You cannot be of service without it reaching back and serving you. And if it's not serving, it's probably enabling. It's probably something else. If it's not serving you. So God, thank you for today and for who you are. And yeah.
So great to have you, Debbie. Debbie, thank you so much.
I love that. And I, when I was, I live in Mill Valley and my film studio is in San Francisco, but most of my friends work for themselves. I mean, it's kind of, I really, when I was making this mother, I had like a salon of all my closest girlfriends. I was, God, everyone's got their own company. I mean, they're running a company, or they have their own practice, or they're a writer, or they're doing their own thing. And I feel like that's a very empowering, that is what technology really enables you to do. And I'm sure all of you have a hope or a dream of doing something like that.
Well, let me just say there's a dark side to that too, because you can, if you don't learn what it is to really be in touch with your own authentic voice and what is a no and what is a yes for you, you can take off and start your own company and be working 40 hours and still doing stuff that's not really yours to do.
Right. Well, that's true.
So it's not
it's getting, well, it's back to what that guy, it's making them align where what you're doing and what will make you happy and what is your strength, that is what you're going to do.
Yeah, and as you and I both know, because we are doing our passions, when you're doing your passion, it doesn't feel like work anyway, and you can go a lot, but still, it's really important. It's finding that connection to your own voice inside so that you have a relationship with yourself and you know what works for you. So you can have that and bring that kind of original creativity to wherever you are working and make it fun. You can make it fun wherever you are working. You can find the place to be expressive and creative. You know, maybe there's some places that maybe the one you're thinking about, we can't make that one fun, but you know what I mean. I mean, that really it's about that. And there's just one other thing I want to respond to about your acknowledgement of service, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. Is it's kind of selfish also, because if you there's a word called eudaimonia, which stands for and came from the Greek, and it's the first two letters EU is good, and the second part daimonia comes from daimon. And back when Socrates and his Greek fellows had believed that everyone had an inner wisdom, a daimon inside that gave them a yes or a no on what they were to do, and they didn't do anything, make any big decisions without consulting that daimon. Well, it turns out studies from universities, cutting-edge studies, show that when a woman is leading a life of eudaimonia, it means she's flourishing. That the way that she does that is by putting your gifts in service to something that matters to you and that makes a difference. And what happens is, the studies show you sleep better, you lose weight, your cardio markers are better, your immune system is stronger. So it's like the body was set up to tell you, do more of that. You know, do more of that. So, thank you. Yes.
Well, this was really, really great for me because of where I'm at. And I just finished a soul-sucking job, to quote you. I'm in healthcare right now. It's about my 5th career. And I just resigned from a job in a major hospital because on Thursday, without anything to go to, but it was so, I had to do that job because I had to become a domain expert in the field that I was in, that I chose to be in, which was the field of aging and gerontology. And I had to work in a hospital, and I had to see patients that were very old in order to understand what the issues were. And I put myself in this environment, and I couldn't sleep. I gained weight. I was constantly sick. And but it's like I had to do it, and I just resigned because I learned everything I needed to learn, and I'm about to start something, but I'm not 100% sure what it is. And from a company that didn't make it, that I had for 9 years in the social networking space, it was a funded company. I still, it was a while back, but I noticed that I'm still scared from that because I'm just scared to jump again. So what really, really, really helped me that you said in what we saw was the Buddha that you showed, that I need to unplug and get quiet within myself and really think about what we all do, what really makes us who we are, what gifts do we have, what strengths do we have. And by remembering that, I started to feel successful. So thanks.
I love that. That's great. That's awesome.
And just, I've been coaching women for over 2 decades, and one of the things I can tell you that is really super good to know is that we tend to hold on to our failures and allow them to define us too long. Failures are really good, like you were saying, so good for us figuring out, okay, not that way, go this way, right? It's so good to help you define, but you've got to let it go, let it go. It's not who you are. It's just something that happened. And really give yourself permission to define and articulate the era that you're in now, to actually take charge of naming what it is. In fact, someone here, do you want to share? That would be so great if you could share that. Is there something about that you want to share? Here.
Okay, so Wendy's putting me on the spot. So Wendy's amazing. She was my coach, and she's just amazing, and I have so much respect for her. So anyway, I recently left a company about a year and a half ago, and with amazing people there. But I left, and I took another position for a lot of reasons. And when I was leaving, I'm also in a position where both my kids went to college, my husband's going back to work, he was a stay-at-home dad, and I took this new position, and it was kind of like a new phase of my life. And although Wendy wasn't going to be my coach anymore, she told me, so you should name this era of your life. Now it's different. And I was thinking back and go, oh yeah, I had like the era of when it was just me and my husband, and then we had kids, and then there was the era of trying to get the kids in college, and then and now it's me and my husband again. They're in college, and I've got this new job, and so what is it? And I realized this should be the era of me. This is about me. So I, all of a sudden, obviously did, put my nose to the grindstone to try to do a great job at work. And I started exercising, lost 14 pounds, and I've just got promoted. And so, it works. When you name your era, good things happen.
And she's the CMO of her company now. So, it's amazing. You think that if you don't take care of yourself, that's the masculine paradigm, that if you just work yourself to the bone, it's going to turn out, and people will notice. And if you're a good girl, no.
Yeah, I actually, this guy who talks about my work, and I kept seeing him tweet, and like I said, he was saying, she's a working machine, or she never sleeps. He said that. Something so masculine, all the military references, but and I actually called him and I said, you're doing a disservice if you talk about my work that way, and you talk about me, you're not getting me. Because I talk a lot about my unplugging, I value balance. I read this great quote of something Flaubert. It said, be routine in your work so you can be radical in your passion. That I'm understanding that the routine and the sleep and the eating and the exercising, that makes me take more risks when I'm doing the other things.
Right. Yeah, you have to master discipline to be creative.
Yeah, there's a great book that I'm reading, which is called The Routines of Creative People. And it just has one page on famous writers throughout history and artists and just what their daily routine was. Wow. I love it. It's just when they got their coffee, then they did this, and they did that. But it's these wonderful little... It's a sweet little book. just one page you can... Who reads a book anymore, right? I can read a page before I go to sleep. But I read an article, and then I'm Anyways, but I used to be a voracious reader, and it really has changed, which is... right?
You're in production mode right now, too.
No.
You're not taking it in, you're not tearing things out.
I read on Shabbat. I read on my tech Shabbats when I don't plug in, but it's just, anyways, that's a whole other. I think we have minutes. I want to hear other people.
Yes.
Yes, and so I am a PhD student at Saybrook University, which is where Tiffany's dad was on the board, and I'm focusing on psychology and creativity. And so tonight has been really connected for me in that I grew up in New York, and I attended School of Performing Arts, but ended up going into business. And one of the things that I've struggled with as a minority woman, and I, rose to the top of banking and was the first of a lot of things. And the thing I really struggled with was, oh, I'm a sellout because, I'm here and I'm doing this work. And it was really fulfilling work and hard. And so I went off and said, oh, I'll have to do my own thing. I'll have to do my own business. And what I found is back to the purpose. And when you look at psychology, and I look at Deepak and people who say things like, I want to make my vocation my vacation. And does that mean that I own a business? Well, what does that really mean? And what I know as a woman and growing up in New York and struggling as a woman and now being in a new place where I'm struggling as a minority woman because I don't feel connected to the women here, is that, and this is really, really hard for me, is that I think being in a large corporation as I'm finishing my degree, that's sort of my calling and purpose, that I get a chance to impact policy. I get a chance for people to see and hear me represent, not totally other women of color, but to have a voice at the table, to have a signature amount that goes, that's comparable to my male peers. And in a lot of ways, the way that we evolve and change things through our creativity is by having that position in place. So I didn't want that answer, but I think it's, I may do both, but I think that part of the challenge and the thing that I've had to accept is that I have to go and do that as part of who I am.
Yeah, it was kind of, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I think, it's interesting because, and I realize probably a lot of you work for corporations, and I was saying how for me, the one corporate job, I just wilted like a flower. I don't flourish in that. But certainly, I'm hosting an event next week for this young woman running for politics in Mill Valley. I'm so proud of her. I would never run for politics. A lot of people have approached me about that because I'm a public speaker. And I'm no interest at all. I do not think I would flourish in that environment. I love making films because I can kind of inspire conversations and kind of affect culture in a very different way. But I love people like you and people that run for politics, and let's hope Hillary runs, and does that, because that's super important, and that's not for me.
It's really interesting that we're talking about the blend of the masculine and the feminine. What I said before about how we need to have discipline before we can be really creative, right? And all of us who have achieved something, we had to do things that we didn't really want to do in some ways to develop the grit to be able to stick with something, perhaps. But then we earn the right to have more choices about how we express ourselves. And staying in a company to bring your voice alive in a company in order to change it for the better for people that are coming up behind you, women and men, is an honorable and amazing purpose to have. And so people ask me what I do, and I'm not going to do a commercial here, but I'll just say, I'm an executive coach, but I also do, once a year, I do a women's leadership program with Susan Green, who was the timekeeper and the facilitator there. And it's an amazing course because it helps you access the full repertoire of both your masculine and feminine strengths. It has you take those strengths, those masculine strengths of strategy and getting things done and focus and discipline, but putting them in service to your feminine wisdom and your feminine values and your feminine dreams. And it really shows you how to do that and recraft your life. And is there anybody that took the course that just wants to say one thing about it here?
I just think it was amazing. And I found that the more in touch I got with all of these things that Wendy's talking about, I would think about them, or I might say them out loud, and then boom, it would happen. I mean, the synchronicity,
it's amazing,
was startling to me, because as soon as I sort of became aware and aligned, go figure, the door's open.
It's amazing.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is the moment of commitment, the universe conspires to support you, or I think it's by Goethe.
So taking these sessions with Wendy and Susan has changed so many things in my life. There's not enough time to even talk about it. But I guess I could summarize by saying that I feel like I finally became the person that I'm supposed to be. And my life is more fun. My work is more fun. I don't care what people think anymore because I'm just going to do it. And, and it's working. I'm happy.
So I just want to really take a moment and tell you from the bottom of my heart, so great to finally get to have you here. And you're so perfect for this audience. Can we please to show her some love? Put her in a love sandwich.
Thank you. Thank you.